well, not the first 20. Oh,
Okay.
yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 70. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you only claiming 50 years of it? Is that
Well, I think I have actual, physical product for maybe 40 years or
okay?
50, maybe
Yeah.
50. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to at least. I mean, I have 30 years of product.
Yes.
So, we have, Rich Chick started in 1998.
Yes.
I think people forget that was a long time ago.
Right. Well, what I think is interesting is I'm going back and looking at this stuff that who wrote that? That's really good.
Yeah, when you read your own writing, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd
Yeah.
forgotten about it. And it's like, why is it in this folder? Is because this doesn't sound like me at all. Well, it was. There are
It
different
was,
people
yeah.
all the time. Yeah.
Uh and I think that's the other thing about going back and looking at content is it also gives you um I remember listening to Wayne Dyer talk about his early books and how he wouldn't that's not the writer that he is now, right? um well, he's not here anymore, but that at that time that he was a very different person. He'd grown, but that was really important to capture that part of his thought process because it was somebody else's thought process that's coming.
Yeah. Well, I think writing in general or trying to come up with something that's never happened before, uh, um, it's, that's like making yourself fail.
Right, right.
So whatever you come up with, you'll be able to work with it. Getting it out on either in your computer or on a piece of paper, that's the important part. Things that interest you will interest other people.
Yes, and I think that is right. If you want to be interesting, be interested,
Yes,
right?
right. And there's lots of things like if you write down little notes to yourself and put it in your purse, you should dig that out every once in a while.
Right, right. Mine is this stack, right? I'm
Yeah,
constantly writing things down, even when I'm talking to people during the day, where I'm like, "Oh, that's so good,"
I
right?
think I'll
So
steal that.
well, a lot of us, you included, you also have a writers group.
Right?
But you hang around with other brilliant people, and boy, the things that come out of their mouth.
And you cause them to come out of their mouth. So, you know,
Sure, sure. But I was sitting, I'm a math, I like to talk about math stuff. So I was sitting with a friend at the Federal Reserve, and we were talking about math and things that we were math. And he goes, "Oh, you need to look at this thing that I do." And it was just this way of just solving a problem that was so different than the way that I had solved it. And it was just so fascinating that I'm like, I have to write this down in my notes. Like, this is so good. And um what I like about math is that you can kind of get somewhere with it, right? That you can go, oh, here's how much we're overspending, or here's how much we don't, here's what we need to earn, or whatever. I like math that way because it gives you a goal, gives you a place to be.
yes. Well,
I am surprised.
one and one is always two.
It's always two
Yes. And
until it's three.
yes, well, you
One and
can
one is
count on
two
numbers.
until it becomes three. That's right. Um,
That's only the first time.
right, until it becomes three. And but I keep something in my phone all the time to write down what people are saying or to capture that ideas. So, and we've talked about that in the small business cohort. I think I brought it up again in 12-week year of the ability to have a system for capturing information.
Right, right.
And
The
and,
small
and
brain.
yeah, the second brain is that,
Second brain, yeah.
yeah, Tiago Forte, we have to give him all that credit for that.
Well, it's people are probably already doing this, but not in such a um, big big way as to collect all that information. Most people don't know how to kind of, you put it into a folder and you never see it again. because you
Right.
haven't classified it. And now AI is here to help us all.
The AI is here to help us all. And um, with all of its imperfections, right? With all of its
Right.
imperfections. And
Let's
what
say
I
that
think
again, all its imperfections.
it's all right, right, right. My husband constantly reminds everyone that there's a it's you're calling it AI, but its first word is artificial.
Yes.
Yeah, it is artificial intelligence. It's not real intelligence. It's artificial. And
Well,
that
it's
part is very accurate.
but you think about what that does is it takes it has the ability to collect so much stuff and kind of put it together. But it doesn't care whether that stuff is copyrighted or not. It brings
No,
it in, so they haven't taught it to be nice.
no, it hasn't taught it to be nice. But I think what a lot of people use it for um, in content, right, is organization.
Right.
That we used, we use tools and systems always to say, how am I going to put together this week's presentation?
Right.
Because you guys get a new presentation every month,
And you
right?
get a new chance to use your brain in a different way.
And I get to use my brain in a new way, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that's the benefit of coming back to content. And we've come back to content a couple of times. And a lot of times we talk about things that are overlapping, but it's
Uh-huh.
always new. It's always uniquely a point of view.
Right. Well, just sticking a blog post into AI is pretty interesting because you can tell it that you want it to be a bulleted thing or that you want it to be a script for an hour long whatever. And hopefully you guys out there are playing with it to see what it can do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a huge presentation coming up for the HR and blockchain, and we are that I'm working with somebody who also does AI, Michelle, and to be able to kind of present in a different way. And um, it is a helpful creative partner, but it's a helpful creative partner when you have two other creatives working on the knowledge. It's a creative partner if you already know your knowledge.
Right. It's kind of like editing. You're
Yeah,
looking for things that well, it is editing. You should do that when you're looking at whatever AI has created for you. It may, just make up, it makes up things. What you're trying to create may not be fiction. So,
right, 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 right. Well, it's interesting. It when we're thinking about content and evergreen content in general for everyone today, one, it's blogs, it's video, right? Today's evergreen content, it's ebooks, it's a lot of different types of content. And one of the things that
marketing,
and
marketing,
marketing, yep, it's all marketing, and it's quantity, it will be on top of each other. Um, white papers, things like that. You can't really use a AI yet to write a white paper, but it is right. We're often looking for wisdom, right? And that's thoughts, experiences, and learning into that's carved into an outcome. And that's, I think, sometimes where AI can be very helpful when you've cataloged your thoughts and your feelings and your learning, and now it can help you push it together a little more efficiently.
right,
Of wisdom you've already earned.
right. But it is fun just to find out what AI thinks about you.
Yes. Have you gone in and asked AI who you are yet?
No.
Oh, it's fantastic. It gives me a new persona every time.
What was your last one?
Well, the last one I actually was like some sort of nuclear physicist. And right, and I'm the only person on the planet Earth with my name, so it's really hilarious because They have no, like, they just totally made it up. They make it up every time. And none of them have been me.
Well, it doesn't actually have the ability to research on the internet as yet.
Yeah, I know. So just
It
gives
has,
me a
and
whole
it,
identity. It gave me a whole dossier on who I was.
so you're going to get a passport for them?
Right. Let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So words of advice for people who are coming into Evergreen content from a writer. What are your words of advice?
My words of advice are to honor it. It's not, it's just because it's not a, a brand new subject doesn't mean people aren't interested in it. You just work with the content, what it means to you. Like if you're writing a book, if you're writing a blog post about eating out, for example, how to choose a restaurant or whatever you decide, it has value. And, if you don't like what it is when you start, you have the absolute opportunity to go back and change it all. So, before you post it, and you look through it, you're thinking, oh, this is terrible. You've got the opportunity to make it better. And don't be afraid to do that. And don't be afraid to pick up and do a blog post on something that you know absolutely nothing about, because in order to write it, you're going to have to find out what it is. So that's a good way to explore new subjects too, is to say, I wonder what that does. It reminds me of kids when they're pushing buttons that they don't know what they're for.
Right? Which is every musician, right?
Yes,
Which is every musician ever. They're just plunking along.
right, right.
Yeah.
And it eventually it becomes, Stairway to Heaven or something like that.
Right. 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 And the same is true with an artist, right? They're just pushing that brush or the pen or the clay around.
Right. And to think that you can use writer's block as an excuse, tisk. There's really no such thing as writer's block.
And
You have
and
to you have to just if you're having writer's block, my advice to you is to get a piece of paper and start writing, even if it's just your name. Just start writing, and it helps. It doesn't work as well, I don't think, on a computer if you're just trying to noodle.
right. Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
have to have a pen and paper. Yeah.
yeah. And doodling helps if you're kind of blocked. Just, putting pen to paper and moving your arm, because that's actually what kind of kicks up your right brain. So that's what you want to do.
You know, I crave writing. Not everyone does.
Well, that's true because it's, I'll tell you what I think. I think it's because it's there. People can judge it. It's not like when you say something, and people, it's gone. When you say it, it's gone unless you're recording it. But if you write it and then you post it, and the world is going to see it, and they're going to
Yeah.
think, you worry about what other people might think. Well, that's really not a good way to live your life. You don't have to be
Right.
as old as I am to think, you don't really care what people think. But I mean, if I did, I would have gotten up earlier and put some makeup on, but I didn't.
Well, the other thing about writing and writing content versus, um,
Journaling
storytelling versus business writing, right? These are all different types of writing. And
and
and I do think that every kind of writing that you do makes you a better writer.
well, journaling is one thing that's very it's non-committal. You don't have to, don't have to be anally retentive to journal. And I always felt like, nobody else is going to see this. And that's another thing, which is you can write anything you want to in a journal.
Right.
And you might find out later that you want to post some of it. So if you go back and look over your journals, you'll find things that you were interested in, and you know, oh yeah, that was 2 years ago. Maybe that would be good.
Right. Right.
But the habit of writing is if you're expecting to write a novel or, another Gone with the Wind, that's one thing. But if you're just a writer that you want to write blog posts, or you want to write other things, or you want to write stuff for your website or whatever it is, just start writing. And if you don't know what you're writing about, after about 2 paragraphs, you'll go, oh, huh. Because the act of writing is like drawing. Art, even looking at art or trying to make little doodles will wake up your right brain. It says, oh, let's do this or let's do that. So I think doodling is a good way to unravel your editor.
Yeah, the activator, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's some real natural activation that's available all the time.
right, right.
And I think that we don't trust the activation.
No, it's
That
like intuition. You don't trust that either.
right, right. Well, I had another friend that talked about it as like, what is your native language? Internally, like we have to find our native language. And for some people, their native language is in that written form, right?
Yeah,
That is some people's their native language is really drawing it out. Or after class day, I'm talking to somebody who is really like, she sees the world in colors, and that she uses color all the time, and that is her native language.
yeah,
Social media content, when you think about it, I would think about it as what, whether you're paying someone else to do it or you're doing it yourself, you want to really think about what is the conversation you want to have, and what is the native language in which you're doing it.
right. Well, I'm just gonna mention about doodling. So this is
Yep,
something
we
that
got it.
I do.
Right.
I was trying to solve a problem and uh, get get into something. So this is a process of how it goes. So
Yeah.
colored pencils help a lot.
Colored pencils, right.
Yeah,
What I like about that artistic problem solving is it just allows you, it gives you some space, right?
Mhm.
Like what I noticed in your drawing is that you were in the center. My guess is that you were the person in the rocket ship.
I was. Yep.
Yeah. So like, you're really mapping it out in that
Right.
way, right? So
What
it kind
happens
of gives
next?
you a visual, and there's a lot of space in that art.
Yeah.
White space is
White space.
helpful. Yeah. And I like that. I like that, right? We would have called that storyboarding as well.
Uh-huh.
And you've done some storyboarding as well on some of your ideas. Um, any advice on storyboarding?
Well, it's a very helpful process. I've been doing storyboarding using the little,
I can
well,
see you
let's see.
searching your desk. What are you searching for in your desk there? Okay, you
Um,
got to turn off your high.
well, there's nothing. It's a blank page,
Oh, it's a
but
blank page. Oh, well then that's what we
yeah,
saw. Yeah.
um, but it's like um, you start storyboarding, you know,
Oh,
and
right,
and this is the one panel.
right.
So you put just one idea on there, and then so that you and I have a really big stack of those cards, and they're movable.
Yeah,
So, you take the pieces of it, and maybe when you shuffle them, it comes out differently. So you can storyboard um, chronologically if you're doing something that way. And then, okay, so what happens if something else happens first instead of what really happened? So, so I think storyboarding is a good way to lay out your idea and to kind of mix it up because, like things that you write, maybe it needs to start in a different place.
right.
So that's what I think storyboard is is good for, because it's got what usually has one idea or one drawing. And I very encourage you to make drawings, even though they're stick figures, because any or just decorating them, you know, you can just decorate them too with your idea.
Right, right. Well, and I think we do a lot of journaling, you and I both in our real lives, and with other people. Um, that artistic journaling, like I did the How journal this year. We've done
Prosperity journaling.
prosperity journaling. You've done a lot of journaling with people. I do a trauma journal class, journaling through trauma. Um, and I've done that for entire organizations. And journaling is interesting when you put that artistic element into it. And I think that's the fun of social media in general, is that you get a chance to really create. And if you have a real job, you're like, oh gosh, I don't have time to do this creative aspect. And actually, I think storyboarding is the secret sauce on how you can get it done faster. If you can just sketch out that idea real quick on a card, it's much easier to just pull that card out and go, let me work on this one idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're
So
pretty cheap. Those cards are pretty cheap.
they're pretty cheap. And they come in different sizes, but these 3x5 cards, and I do a 4x6 on bigger stuff, but these little cards are just a huge deal for being able to write down things and put those ideas forward and then start stacking them up. And what I like about that is it always allows you a way to work from prosperity first, right? Because you have a stack of ideas. And I think that people feel blocked because they don't have a stack of ideas.
The blank page, the terror
Yeah.
of the blank page.
The terror of a blank page. I do think it's funny that both of us, within our reach, piece of paper and a pen at all times. Right? That it's never an arm's reach away.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's very funny. My daughter Lindsay was sitting at my table the other day, so she was working from my dining room table, and I have these new pens that are micro tips, and they're in every color. And I knew the minute I ordered them and got them, and they were great, that she was going to want those pens. So anyway, but she happened to see them before I had given them to her, because her birthday's not till next month. And anyway, she's like, oh my gosh, these pens. And I thought, what a tribute, right? That you will like pens as much as me.
I must have 1,000 pens, and I could never find one.
Oh, right. And she likes to have 1,000 pens too. And yeah. I asked my husband the other day, because I'm cleaning out, right? So I'm cleaning out and sending things to the thrift store to sell or whatever. And anyway, I said, is there anything around here that you don't want me to, get out of here? And he's like, no, you should start working on all those pens. He's like, don't buy another pen while I'm living.
Well, I do throw them away, because if I pick one up and it doesn't work, I throw it away.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what else would you do with it?
Well, sometimes people they think they're going to make it work later.
Oh,
Like, yeah, they'll know how
yeah.
to fix it.
Yeah. Now, this is interesting. Do you have different notebooks for different sets of ideas?
Um, no, I used to, but then you have a whole bunch of notebooks
Right.
yeah, no, I started just using the cards.
So you don't dot journal at all?
Not really. I have not really very organized about journaling. I have different notebooks for journaling, but you know, they're
And what do you mean
only,
different notebooks about journaling?
well, because I have like my birthday journal
Hmm.
that I only write in when it's my birthday or I've been at somebody else's birthday,
Hmm.
and
That's
otherwise
fun.
you have to search through all your stuff.
Right.
And I also still do. I used to have a calendar that I would write things in, a pocket calendar.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
then, yeah, and maybe later I would take some of that and journal about it. But, like the things that really ticked you off in a grocery line or,
Right.
and,
Right.
and there's a trauma of picking the wrong line at Target and everybody else is zipping through on the line you didn't pick.
Right. Right. Well, I think so not everyone has a love story with creating content or
Right,
writing or
right,
photography or whatever. So for someone who is just, your average business owner, and you have to be able to have a conversation with people virtually, right? Just like this.
right.
Um, as a writer, where would they start?
As a writer, where would they start?
Yeah,
What's interesting to me today?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just when you're going about your life and you see something that's kind of like, wow. And if you don't kind of record it somewhere, like I know you use a lot of voice memos.
I use my,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
I
and
dictate.
I yeah, I'm I'm not fast enough for that. But you can just jot things down. And I used to record conversations, not record them, but write them down because it's
Hmm.
so funny. People like in the offices with our cubicles,
Oh,
they are
yeah.
not soundproof. They're not soundproof.
No.
So, you got a whole cereal, soap cereal going on and this one or that one. And it's
Right.
like people don't think that you can hear them, but it's like, ah. So if you're a fiction writer, that's a good place to get dialogue.
Right.
just
Right.
just to
You'll get
listen.
great
If you
dialogue.
I mean, when you're thinking about Starbucks or other places like that where people are just gabbing and you pick up you think, oh, wow, that's really a cool way to say that. So you can write a lot about somebody said this. And I because I wrote, I think, two short stories based on something that I heard, which is, he's not the father.
Right. Right. He's not the father. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow. Mm. Right. A lady's secret.
yeah. Well, I made it up. I don't know what it was, but I like that. So I
Right.
made up a story about it.
I
Yeah.
This is totally off topic of what we're
Yes.
talking about. But we used to write the Mr. and Mrs. Ear, right? Listening to the conversation in the next booth when you're out to eat, right?
Yeah.
That we have this thing that I called the elevator game. And oddly it was a terrible plan that I taught my husband the elevator game when we first started dating. And I'm like, no, you'll love this game. And it's where you try to um improv off of a lie, right? And you just make up a lie and the other person has to do it, and you do it in a public place because the other person can't help it hear, right? So we would make these up on like on an airplane, right? Because they can hear you, but you would just have to work that improv through that plane ride to, Cincinnati or something. And he got so good at it until like one day I made him go to a bed and breakfast, and all of a sudden the whole mood of the table had changed because he had started the elevator game in a different way, where he just decided he didn't really much care for this, so he just made up a story that he had recently been discharged and he wasn't going home to his wife and that this was his girlfriend and whatever. And suddenly the table just started kind of turned on me like, who are you? What are you doing? And like everyone kind of abruptly left. So I'm like, what were you talking about over there? And he's like, Just the elevator game. Just made up a whole lie. Yeah,
Don't
it's very
try
fun.
this at home.
Don't try this at home, everyone. But you know, the elevator game is it's a fun game. I remember it's fun to do in Las Vegas because you actually and any of those things could happen. So you really get a wide palette in Vegas of like, you know, oh gosh, I can't believe so and so. They're so much taller than I thought they were, or they're so much shorter than I thought they were. And just talk about, you know, a big lie. It was fun.
Oh,
Great for every writer, right? Make up a lie and try to
make
talk
up a
about it
lie.
anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's not really a lie, it's fiction.
It's fiction, right? Make up fiction. Uh,
Right.
but when you so going back to our real topic, which is evergreen content,
Yes.
which is, you know, right, it starts with writing. All of it starts with writing or
Right.
drawing. It starts with
Well,
pen
starts
and
here.
paper and here.
Starts here. Yep.
Do you have any favorite evergreen content that you go to?
Personal development, I think, is um what I like, and self-care.
I think those are big ones for everybody.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different ways, but when people say self-care, what do you think?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, what do I think about? What are my favorites? Well, my
Yeah.
first of all, I use YouTube to repair everything. That whatever is broken, whatever I don't know how to do, I go to YouTube first. I don't know what this does in this program. Let me do that. I don't know what this thing in my phone does. I go to that. I am looking for YouTube to repair everything in my life.
Oh, well.
So yeah, I go to YouTube first to repair something. Um, Tegan, my son's girlfriend, um, they had a screw in their tire. So she taught herself how to put a plug in a tire off of YouTube and sent me a picture of like, I just repaired the tire, right? So evergreen content that can help me keep moving in my life is really important to me.
Yeah.
So I never feel stuck.
Well, that's true. YouTube is really good for that. And if you're on YouTube a lot, it tells you what you want to tells you what
It
to think
does
about.
tell you. It does tell you. It does
Yeah.
tell you. And the so yeah, I like that for YouTube. I also like it for exactly this, right? When we have people that we watch and trust all the time, I want to hear all their new ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think you know, I had an idea a long time ago and I still like it, which is I if I were I I think before I die, I'm still gonna make car ride TV.
Trish.
Yeah, is just put that camera on the window and just let it drive with me. Um,
I was
because
thinking about Trish Sisseton, where she was driving and singing.
oh yeah, yeah,
She was
and look
having
at
people sing with
carpool
her.
karaoke, and it's over now. There's no more
Yeah.
carpool karaoke with
Well, you could go back and watch it all again and again.
and again and again.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Um, but yeah, like you know, when we think about those things as evergreen content, right? These are pieces of content that were written to be fun and amusing, and we can just come back to them and enjoy the joy.
Or helpful, like the trauma work that you do. It's
Yeah,
trauma is unfortunately evergreen.
yeah,
It'll
yeah.
always be there, and it's a good thing to have more information out there about.
Well, and the so in NW2 that we've done two on trauma. We did one, and it was so well attended and so crazy amount of replays on it that we've reposted it again. We did a second version of it. Yeah, that's a piece of content that's come a long way.
Yeah, and it's something that isn't talked about in a you know because trauma is something that you're supposed to hide, right?
Well, or you choose to hide from. I mean,
Well,
like,
that's the way it works
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
If it's not a, a very public trauma, and we all have little traumas in our lives that kind of add up.
micro traumas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I on the Secret podcast, I did one on micro trauma a long time ago, probably 5 years ago now. And in the Secret podcast, those are for our prosperity scholars. So they will, something will come up in class, and I'll record just on my phone, kind of a response to that for everybody in class, and then I'll just send it to them from my phone. And one of them I did from a hotel room in Wisconsin, I think. And I remember we were having all of the girls, Fatun Ali's, um, if you remember, Fadumo and her girls were graduating from high school. These were girls that had, this was a family that had 4 girls graduating in 1 year that had come to America. So I was driving there and I was answering this question about micro traumas and just what to do about it. And so the other thing about content is if you are someone that's on the world, you are informed by where you are, right? You're informed by your own movement and things like that. And the micro trauma, it was very interesting. The girls asked me what I was doing this afternoon. And I said, oh, I was recording this recording. And to hear it from many people's perspective, so it became the conversation that we were having, right? What are micro traumas? And growing up in in a camp waiting for your chance to come to America. They were living under a tent for 7 years. They were living for 7 years trying to get to our country. And so they're in a tent and there's a like a tag on the tent that somebody like a 3x5 card kind of thing. And it's what country is adopting you. And then you wait for your turn and all your papers go into that plastic thing. And they were really, they were like, they didn't even think about how many small traumas they had growing up. And because they have this huge capacity for change, right? And I think the thing about trauma is that the high achievers or people that have capacity to hold a lot of change, they don't think about all these small paper cuts. But boy, they sure add up.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they really add up.
Excuse me.
And and in trauma, what's the key part about micro trauma that you think people should take away?
To recognize it,
Right.
because they're there. It's like you say about the paper cut. Man,
Yeah.
they hurt,
They
but you
sting.
can hardly see them, you
Yeah.
know. But they're there. It's there, and you probably have to put something on it, maybe a Band-Aid or some kind of antiseptic. And the micro traumas are not. We just brush them off because they don't change our life significantly in an hour or whatever, but it's still there. And when you have all these little paper cuts, pretty soon you know it looks like one big thing.
Yeah. And you know what? That I think is the key item there, right? Especially if they're all in one area, right? If they're
Yeah,
centralized in one area, then you get so many of them, it suddenly feels like my whole hand is inflamed.
right,
Right.
because it is.
Because it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 Wow, that's powerful. So yeah, I think that when we look at evergreen content and what you are looking at, what is your thing? That's one of the things I think that's why we should ask our friends what they're watching. What are they using? How are they using this machine right here? Right? This is my phone, right? How are you using this phone? And what are you looking up? What are you reading? And I'm surprised at how many people are watching self-help.
right.
Yeah. I'm also surprised at how many therapists have moved to TikTok.
The 3-minute cure.
Well, yeah, I picked up this other day these self-therapy cards because I would thought, oh wow, that's interesting, right? The action card that gets you to implement changes in your lifestyle one task at a time. And I thought, oh, this is brilliant. And then the meditation cards promote relief from anxiety and teach you to deal with your daily stress. And I thought, okay, well, let's see how much therapy somebody could give me, right? And that's really what this is TikTok is just taking one of these conversations and just making a 3-minute video on it. And I think that's also when you think about bite-sizing bite-sizing content, something like this is really helpful, right? And that's what we're doing with their 3x5 cards, is we're writing out an idea quick, and then we'll build on it from there. They just took it and put it on therapy on a card.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how's that working out for you?
I have well, they have meditation cards. So one of them is a meditation card. Whoops, let's see. Yeah, no, okay. Well, I'm failing on this. But when I got into it, I thought, oh, well, this isn't actually that much. Because they broke it up into colors. So you have a red one for love, you have a blue one for what's that one? So you have meditations. Whoops, meditation. So they color coded them for you. So there's 7 colors in here. But it was just a quick item, but what I got it for was to just think about this topic, was how do we talk about something as complex as content? How do we apply it to business? How do we apply it to topic? How do we apply it with our own flavor? And what are we bringing to the marketplace? It's complex. This is a big topic.
It is. And
Yeah.
I think just on the other side of this, we are a nation who makes our people believe they're not enough
Yeah.
and that you really need to improve yourself. You maybe need to be somebody else that you're not. And, then they have these consumer goods that you can buy to aid that process, which may or may not help. But I've
Right.
always been kind of on the other side of self-help, which is there's a lot of it out there, but that doesn't mean that you need help. Because there's this big thing going around now. So I think having people think about well, I'm enough, but maybe there's something else I'd like to learn. Maybe there's a different way I'd like to handle things. But
Yeah.
the idea about self-help is that there's something wrong with you and
Yeah.
you should fix it. And maybe there is, but for the most part, it's you buy the advertising.
Yeah. You buy the advertisement. Yeah.
Buy the advertisement. You got to buy this car because you'll be very cool, and all these things that are around that car that make the commercial, that'll happen to you.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, I have this girl at the bank that I love so much. And so she and I talk about her life, because she's, and I follow her on Facebook, and I close my Facebook down. Like I don't have strangers on my Facebook. That on my private page, it's really people I know. And so she's on my Facebook. So I get to watch her youth. And I just kind of remind her that, I'm watching, and I'm so proud of her living her life, right? As a single young female, and being courageous to do things like jump out of an airplane. And she's big like I am. She's a bigger woman. And being a bigger woman, you sometimes feel like you can't do something, right? I'm like, oh no, go live your life, go live your life. And what is interesting about that conversation is to see how many times the people around you are inspiring you in general. And I think that's the other part of content that we forget, is that we are deeply inspired by the people we love.
And that's a good thing to write about.
And that's a good thing to write about. Yeah. Yeah.
When I think back of people that have inspired me, when I was 100 years ago, when I was young, and well, I wasn't stupid, but I didn't know a lot. And I became a manager and I didn't know how to manage, but it was someone else who was already there that did. And she was very helpful. But I had also had people that I was with where they're like, oh no, well, you just have to make it all on your own because I did. And so
Yeah.
so when you look back on what inspired you, those both inspired me in different ways.
Mhm.
So that's who I did not want to be, is the, the one that didn't want to give it up or felt like if she helped me that it would do something not good to her. And
Yes.
yeah. And so I think that the people that inspire us might not be, a big movie star, might not be Lady Gaga, who was a wonderful person, but the people that create small miracles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. And I think on content in general, um, one of the things that the girl at the bank said, she goes, "Oh, I always read your posts. I always read your posts." Um, because she likes to see what, right? Because she can see that maybe she could grow up, right, to be somebody who, in her mind, I already have courage, right? And in my mind, I'm still getting some. Right. And one of the things that she's like, oh, I always read your posts. And I said, well, I've done a word count on them. So you've already read a novel on my life. And she's like, oh, I read every one. She goes, I go back and click. And if I haven't gotten to my Facebook for like a month, she's like, I'll go back and reread all your posts. And I'm like, well, first of all, thank you about that. Um, but it's funny how, right, from her point of view, she's looking at me as someone who already has courage. And I'm someone that's looking at her to go, oh gosh, live, live, live. Right. But then I'm living through her courage.
Well,
Right?
I'm not going to jump out of an airplane anytime soon. So
No, no,
no.
that day that you have a different airplane to jump, right?
Yeah.
You have a different airplane. But what I think about content for those of you who are doing storytelling content, that telling your story is a big deal.
It is. I have a friend that is a motorcycle freak. And so he started out 2 or 3 years ago, he started a blog called America is a Beautiful Thing. And
Oh,
he,
she vlogged. I vlogged.
yeah, Stephen Banks, yes.
I love Stephen Banks.
And that's all he's doing is he's going to, well, it's not random because he picks where he wants to go and whether or
Right.
not he's going to take the dog along.
And he's a great writer. I mean,
He is a great
Stephen
writer.
Banks is a great writer. Stephen, if you are listening, thank you.
Yeah. And he meets these random people
Yeah.
and there's a story there. And I don't know how he is drawn to that particular person because you know, they're just sitting on a chair outside of a
Right.
gas station.
Right.
But it's totally amazing what he does with that. So that's his content, is that he just randomly goes about whenever his wife will let him
Right.
randomly go about the United States to these places that are very interesting to him.
Right.
And
To
now
him,
they're interesting to us.
to us. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to go to that gas station, you know?
Well, and I like the serendipity in his writing, you
Yes.
know, that as a writer, I really appreciate the adventure in his writing,
Hmm.
and the craft of his writing.
And then he's motorcycling through the rain,
Yes. Yes.
taking pictures of it.
Right. Right. I mean, it is, and so that storytelling aspect, not everyone has the time to do that or the call to do that. But for those people who do, I think it's really fascinating.
It is.
Yeah. Because, right, you and I are just excited to know the same person. Right. And we feel like we know him. You actually know Stephen.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So I don't. So the fact that we feel like we know the same person because we know their stories, that's the beauty of evergreen content right there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen, wherever you are.
Yes, wherever you are. I don't
Wherever
know
you
where he
are.
is.
Yeah, may your wheels keep turning, right? May your wheels keep turning.
And may you find the perfect piece of pie.
And yes, and may you find the perfect piece of pie. Okay, well, I'm going to get into our content. Um, any last words of advice? I'm so thankful we had this time, you and I.
See this?
Yes.
Pick it up, put it on paper,
Take up a pen, put it on paper,
and move your hand.
move your hand, and move your
Yeah.
hand. Okay, well, we're going to get into content. Guess what I have in store for us today? Because you know, we everybody loves a slideshow. I have a slideshow variant that you've never seen before. So I'm excited.
Do I need extra clothing or anything? But
No, you don't,
I'm
but
gonna
you'll
get
go.
chilled.
Yeah, it is. Uh, for for those of you who are watching this that are in my private life, um, I'm very into the forest right now. So today's evergreen content made me go to this forest theme. So we have we have a new artistic venture today. Okay, well, I'm going to turn on. I'm going to share my screen with everyone, and we will get right to that content. Let's see if it will let me do that. Share screen. For some reason, my thing is so slow today.
Mine is too.
All right, here we go. Your screen is loading. Here we go.
Oh, that's totally cool.
Isn't it totally different?
Yeah.
I told you would be like, wow, who am I? Yes, so today, this is my gift to all of you, this forest theme. And that let us welcome in your evergreen content right into the world today. So when we are thinking about evergreen content, you want to think about right from why to wow. So my goal for today is one to put in right what can I always do for you, is that's the prosperity mindset, and to also just review that prosperity business model, because I think it's really helpful in this topic. Because prosperity mindset, right, the 3 E's, economy, efficiency, environment, they're really critical in understanding the value of evergreen content. So that is what I kind of use the forest theme for. So we want to use that to create lasting content. But again, we want to always be working from a point of prosperity. And the way to do that is to not start with nothing, right? The forest is constantly growing because there's something under it. And so that's really getting those ideas onto paper. That's really using those 3x5 cards. That's really putting some sort of methodology in under you. The prosperity business model works for so many businesses because it's a model. It's something they can build on every day. They can think about it through a lens. So when you're thinking about the why are you creating content, you want to move into the wow. And that prosperity conversation is the energy that you're putting into it, right? That it gets better and better, and it gets to magnify over time. And so the more energy you put into a part of your conversation, the more it gains power. So if you are thinking about that you're very good at something, I think about stores that sell a certain topic, or whatever it is that is your power in what you do. We have to think about that as the wow. So stop thinking about the why. Why would I do this? Or how am I going to do this, right? It is to go, let me go from that how to wow, right? We've got to think about what is the conversation that only you can have. And that just starts with identification. That you want to think about things that are useful. And so, of course, we want to talk about the cute little pandas of our life in the market appeal, right? Panda bears are just adorable looking, right? They're still bears, but you know, who doesn't love a panda? If I were going to come back as an animation for myself, I would come back as a panda bear because they're so adorable to me. But I'm not the only one that thinks that. So think about, right, the topics that are you think will have market appeal. And again, Karen's advice earlier of if you're interested in it, it's probably going to be interesting to someone else. That's what all social media was built on, right? Is sharing. This was interesting. Let me share it with my friends. The other thing about usefulness is I would think about giving information. That is a key item. And the other part of giving information is explaining a detail. Just because someone tells you something doesn't mean you actually understand why that is an important detail. So a lot of times people will give me a reminder and they think that's important. So like, I'll give you an example from my life that I'll be walking out the door and my husband will say, pay attention out there in that car, pay attention out there. And I realized that he wasn't just saying that to say, that's how I'm saying goodbye. I started to ask him, why are you telling me that? Why, what is it that I'm missing? You're just saying, pay attention out there. And he goes, it's rush hour, it's raining, no one else is paying attention. I need you to come back home alive, right? Oh, okay, let me help me understand that detail. So sometimes it's something really basic that you think you're telling someone, but you're not actually telling them in a way that they understand the details of why they're reminding you about it. So even in today, right, what is useful? What is useful to someone is very different, right? Sometimes useful is a cat video because it cheers me up. But sometimes it is the information of how to fix the tire. And sometimes it is explaining a detail. For me, working in accounting and working with businesses, a lot of times I need to understand how the cause and effect of a detail. If I put this in QuickBooks in this one way, this is what it gives me on the outside. So a lot of times I'm explaining details to people in their own accounting departments about why you want that detail. You don't want that detail because you love to input in a certain way. You put input in because you want an output. And so sometimes just explaining a detail. So when you're thinking about content, think about, again, a detail and make it meaningful. When you are, Karen brought this out before, right? You don't have to, you don't have to talk about current events. You want to look at things that are going to stay accurate all of the time. And there are a lot of topics that are timeless. When you are thinking about that, you want to really, this is where AI is not helpful because you have to ensure that the information you're giving is accurate. If you're pulling it out of AI, you have to double check that. You actually have to say that if you're doing something on tax law, right? Well, that content is going to expire when that law expires, when that tax code changes. And just so you know, if you are not, if you're someone who doesn't play with tax code, it's the tax code update every year is like 8,000 pages. It's longer than any religious text. So, you know, it's a big deal. So things like that are always changing. So there's always new content, that means you have to pull down the old content. So when you are making content and you're making it meaningful, it's also just a lot more efficient to do it in this way. So you want to think about, you want to enjoy content that can be the solve for a long time. So creating it is also a time saver. From a prosperity perspective, it's a better use of the resource because it can be relevant for many, many years. So when you're thinking about that for a business owner, the number one reason I use it for the businesses that I'm using, and remember, I'm servicing businesses that are already over $1 million. for those of you who are a million of annual revenue, 1 to 12 million is my personal specialty. But when you are building, no matter what you're building for, if you are building for something that you're going to magnify, it is really helpful to come in with evergreen content from the very beginning, because now you will be able to use it for as you grow. It allows you to magnify more fully. And right, the definition of magnification is the ability to magnify. So if everything that you build is something that you can build off of, it's fantastic. So I'm always looking at how do we bring in authority building? And it's looking at that expertise in a specific area. And what I like about that for a new brand is it really allows you to suddenly become a trusted source. And when you consistently put out information, the consistency itself is the authority. So think about that. I can always count on Friday that this is coming out, or whatever your content schedule is going to be. That is the actual act of posting it regularly is part of the authority configuration. So we also know that in a scrolling system, people gorge content. So if they like what you say in one video, they're going to like this bear in this video, right? They're just going to eat salmon after salmon after salmon, right? So if it's a good fish, they're going to try every fish you have. So if you have content, you have to be able to also create in a way that someone finds value in multiples of that. So that's why having a topic and a marketing plan is really helpful, because you want to go, this is the thing we're going to talk about as authority. So if you are a chef, talk about chefing. They don't really want to hear about your car repair. If you are someone who is in car repair, talk about all sorts of car repair. If you, whatever it is that you are doing, be that. Be the thing that you are, and work on consistency. Consistency is half of the equation of staying relevant. And that's our next conversation, is that evergreen marketing, evergreen content allows you to consistently stay relevant, because all of the topics that you have, even if you repeat them later, so people are going to gorge on your content, but they're going to gorge only on the last 24 months of that content. So they'll go back. So when you're looking at evergreen content, things that you created just 2 years ago, you can repost, and they're going to consistently keep you relevant. So it allows you to run now half the race instead, right? Or 1/4 of the race, or 1/10 of the race, because you can go back and pull content forward to consistently stay relevant. We have 2 of our all-time winning from the businesses that I've supported. One that has gotten more views than any of them was how to relocate a toilet, because it was always relevant. People are constantly moving their toilet, and that video changed so much, right? It took us 1 day to shoot. We put in the effort, and we talked about all of the things you need to know when you're moving a toilet or removing a toilet. The other that has done so much and has caused so many things is in divorcing a narcissist. So that has gotten more blog hits than anything that we've created for that firm. So think about those topics that you are the master of, that you know how to do. We have another item of how, what to do with failed ice cream. How to fail at ice cream, how to fail at other things. Sometimes the way to stay relevant is to help someone be confident in what they're doing. So the first assignment for everyone is to just jot down identify the topics and the themes and that are there. And that's where, when Karen and I were talking about how are you going to use those 3x5 cards, that's where you're going to do it. That's where you get to really put in just the notes around what are the topics you would talk about. And I would try in a great marketing plan, again, I would try for 50, because that will allow you a year of content. Weekly content is very helpful. You don't have to make it all in that time, but you want to think about those 50 ideas. So if you are someone that is a chef, boy, think about 50 things that are going to go right or wrong in what you're doing. If you are selling whatever it is that you are selling, work on that, right? If you are selling a home, there's 50 ways that you can get your home ready. There are 50 things that you can prep for, right? There are 50 things that you can work in a forward motion. And those are topics that are always going to be relevant. Sometimes I really do invite people to help me do that. So especially when I'm working with a larger company, that I invite the entire company to give us those clues. So if you are someone who works in an office, or if you're running a bigger firm, this is where I would send that email out to all and let them all come into the things that they think are important to their customers. What is very interesting, when we did this in what we find is that when we look at this in the businesses that are between 1 and 12 million, but we really see this a lot in that 1.2 to 5 million revenue, is customer service. That there are many times customer service issues that are coming in that, and the next is HR. So running a business when you're doing 500,000 of revenue is very, very different than when you're doing 1.2 million in revenue. So conducting that market research about what are the things that people want to know in their business. So just avoid the things that are trendy and short-lived. That is for short-lived content. It's not where your dollar is going, your big dollar. Your big dollar is always going towards these things that are reusable. And evergreen content is where you want to put your largest marketing investment in, even if you're new. So take the time to do that. Evergreen content, the other thing that I love about it is it is for anyone who has a budget that is tight, slim, non-existent, or needs to be really focused. When you are someone who has a small budget, you want to think about it as being focused. When you look at that from a prosperity mindset, right, looking at it as not enough will only magnify that, right? So we need to look at that as going, no, what we have to do is we have to love it enough. We have to move it around. We have to play with it around to really focus in our effort so that it is enough. And that's the joy, right? Is to evergreen content will allow you to be cost effective. Even though you're paying more for each piece of content than you may feel comfortable with, over time, it is working. So because, right, it continues to generate value over time. This is about the last year that we're going to get a lot of play on Bernie Sanders with those mittens. That was a meme. So any of you who have followed memes in general, that you love different memes, they're going to go out of style, right? It's not funny later. So because it's out of context. The point of those things that are really right now posts are very different than evergreen content. Evergreen content is the value that you're bringing to the marketplace over a long period of time. And then these short, fun things that are right now, that's just a fun way to laugh with people or to be with people or to showcase something. So think about, again, generating content that can stay up. It doesn't require a lot of maintenance, and it is cost effective. So the ones that I use a lot are just the Q&As on your website, right? What are the first Q&As that people are going to ask you, right? And one of them is, how do you work with us? How we got started? What's our business model? We did one for how design matters. We've worked on design a lot with a lot of different companies. So think about that Q&A and what it is that's in your Q&A. Again, it's evergreen content. So I did give you a pop quiz of today, a little learning something, which is what does it mean to be an old growth forest? And an old growth forest is, right, that it has a forest that's been there for more than 120 years. When we look at it as an evergreen forest, it means that those trees are a certain size. So when you are looking at just that piece, right, that you're looking to become your own old growth forest, that you're looking for new things to regenerate, but you're looking for that solid foundation where something can sit for a while and really gain strength. So think about your evergreen content like an old growth forest, something that can sit around and just grow. And the more of those that you have growing, the thicker and more beautiful your forest will be. The other thing that that we talk about and this is really, I would think about it as the shelf life. So timeless contact for longevity is the proper term for it, right? It's timeless content for longevity. That's the category we put it in marketing plans. And what do we put in there for timeless contact? And that means that somebody's going to always come to the door for that, right? So it's that there's always a reason, that there's no time that someone's not going to contact someone about that. So how to get in the door of a new company, how to build a partnership, how to, that this is the longevity is what makes people keep looking for you. So think about it as shelf life. And one of the things I remind people about is that there is no shelf life to cuteness. And when I thought about that, when I was making this slideshow for you, I thought, well, what's the cutest thing I could think of? And it was a bunny, right? A new bunny is always cute. We are never tired of a new bunny. So when you're thinking about that, think about what are the things that always have a shelf life. And that is often education or explaining something or explaining a concept. So, and really when you're writing that, you want to ensure that this is content that is always, always, always going to stay true. So when I remind people about something in their accounting, that I go, look, you are always going to need the receipt. Even though you have this other statement, you are always going to need a receipt because the IRS requires a receipt. That's not going to change for them. And a credit card statement that says you did that is not a receipt. It's just a credit card statement. So things like that is to go, this is relevant information. You're going to want this all of the time. So it's ensuring that that is important information. So whatever it is that you are doing, you want to think about how it's going to be relevant forever. So an example from other industries, right, is that you may want to check your paperwork before you mail it, right? If you've noticed, if you have an envelope that you may have used lately, like going to send in your ballot, if you notice, they give you a list of things that have to be with that absentee ballot, right? There's a list on the back of each thing of this has to be inside of, this has to be inside of, this has to be inside of. It's things like that. So talking about your content, ensuring that that's relevant, and what would that look like? So think about what is interesting. That's a small detail that people are going to need all of the time. Organization is like that. So if you are doing something that is around organization, I think that's really powerful, really powerful. Evergreen content, another magic about it is that it's long lasting. If you search something on YouTube, sometimes you're going to be picking up a YouTube that somebody recorded 7 to 10 years ago. And that piece of someone being able to find you in your content means that you will have this long lasting piece. So it is quality versus quantity, right? And that quality piece is worth the investment because you'll get to use it year after year after year after year. And that long lasting marketing impact is that they see you over and over and over again. If you are creating on YouTube this long lasting content that comes up regularly, that automatically makes you someone who's constantly talking about that. That automatically gives you authority because it has this long lasting impact. And it makes your marketing budget magnified. So find ways that people can use that, because that's how word of mouth happens. Many times they're not actually responding to something that you created last week. If you've been doing this for a while, they're responding to something they read maybe a year or 3 or 5 or 7 years ago. So think about what that looks like. I put a little bonus in here for you on the barn owls. Again, right, I used a forest theme in today's slideshow, and these are 2 owlets just going around. But I was just wondering if you knew which of these owls mate for life. Go ahead and put, because most of you are in the replay on this, so go ahead and put into the chat box replay or whatever your guess is of which of these owls mate for life. I will put the answer in the comment section. So there you go. That's my secret gift for you. So again, right, it's that prolonged shelf life of, right, think about it again in that forest theme. It's evergreen content. You're looking for the prolonged shelf life of something, right? You're really looking to also drive conversations over an extended period of time. One of the hashtags that I use on LinkedIn is Call Me Maybe. And I use that because people know it's really me then, right? That's something that I only use. So another thing that you can use in that are specific hashtags that are only you, so that they can drive that conversation in a bigger spectrum. So if you are specific in something that you are doing, so one of the hashtags we used for one of the law firm is a step parent adoption. One of the hashtags that we use for another person is elderberry farm. Another hashtag that we use for somebody that is very specific to their business so that they can be part of the larger conversation in general, right? Ice cream for ice cream. Dogs need a vacation was another one. So when you're looking at your hashtags, those are also another tools that you can add into your conversation that are uniquely you. If you are doing business in a certain part of town, I live in the Midwest, so we have certain parts of town that have different meanings. So if you are from, right, there are sometimes different spellings to a part of town. So if you're in local, you know that you only call that town this other thing, right? So here I live in the Twin Cities, so they don't even call it the Twin Cities here. If you're from a small town here, you just call it the cities. So that would be a hashtag for somebody, like going to the cities hashtag. If you are someone that lives here also, you may call it the Minneapolis, right? So think about things that are really uniquely in your region so that you can kind of come up in your region if you're looking for regional clientele. Northeast is the way you spell it, Nordeast, right? Northeast is how you talk about the artist district around here. We have someone that has created the conversation around a place called Camden Town. That's Houston White's little nook of the woods, right? So renaming something so that it's uniquely you with a hashtag. The other thing that I love is things that give me a reassurance. So when you're creating content, the reassurance I want is that I can use it in multiple ways. So multi-use content is really great. So writing a blog, taking a picture, we talked about the motorcycle blog, right? There's storytelling, there's visual, there's the writing itself. So there are many ways that they can use that content. And when you are looking at content, you can slideshow it, you can record it, you can do whatever. That you want to think about ways that you can use your content in multiple ways. So one of the things I like about written content is that it can become a blog, it can become a newsletter, it can become an email, it can be direct marketing. And that's the benefit for you of thinking through this evergreen content conversation for yourself, is it's going to give you a robustness, a value add. And remember, right, what's the definition of prosperity? It's the ability to magnify. So think about that as the action part. And action is, right, that we actively approach our content. We're putting in there, we're putting in our leadership, we're putting in our boldness, we're building muscle memory with our content. So multiple use content is something that we can use in a lot of different ways. Something as simple as the power of YouTube. Going back through all of the blogs that you did is giving you the outline for your YouTube video. And if you are looking at a YouTube video and you're recording and you're showcasing something, you want to say to yourself, these are the 5 things I'm going to showcase. This is, if I'm showcasing a product, these are the 5 things I'm always going to talk about in that product. Or these are the 3 things that are unique about this product that are different about every other product. Kind of giving yourself a game plan. When you think about action, right? Action is to actively approach. You're going to want to actively approach all of your content in a way that it allows it to magnify. It can be that. The other deep secret of why I like evergreen content is the SEO. The search engine optimization is, it really allows you to be, so the more people view that content from a long ago, the more it stays current in the SEO. So you don't have to keep programming. It's already programmed itself, right? That all of the regenerative types of technology that we have is learning on other knowledge. So it's not building new knowledge. We are actually in the trajectory of growth in technology. We are actually using right now the basis of building off of what has already been built. And so you see a lot of people kind of reinventing something that's already been invented to just be a little bit better. It's not innovatively totally. So when you're looking at SEO, they're using all of the ways that they search engines before, and now they're building on top of those. So that's the benefit for you of long-term visibility, is that the way you built 5 years ago, and if you were being called in to that video that was popular 5 years ago, yes, they're going at new content, but if you already have 1 million views on an old piece of content, they're going to consider that new content because it's still being utilized. It's still relevant. It's still magical. It still has a life force and a leadership in the market. And that's the beauty of great content, is that it will allow you to constantly have that posture. Because action is its own narrative, right? And you don't always have to be the person doing that action. So you're creating content, so you don't always have to be the action. That if you're creating content that people use and utilize, they're the action. So give them things that give them the ability to have movement on what you're saying, because action is the narrative, right? It is the narrative. It's the invitation. It's the consideration. It's the intention. So speaking to business concepts, right, they will also allow us to build community. And what I love about building community is that we can talk about what it's like to be that. If you, again, are someone who is a chef, speak to that community about what it's like to be these important parts of your business. If you're someone who has a sales that you're selling things that you get big checks on, so you have income that is intermediate, talk about that aspect of your business. If you are looking at the execution or the movement of your business, talk about that. Action is a really big deal in content. So think about what your game plan is, how you're going to mobilize it, but think about it from the other side of the view. What's the muscle memory that you're trying to build in someone else? And think about the business that you have. So the aspects of your business that might be, right, where to start. And the where to start is often in the Q&A. What are your values? What are your mission? What's the vision? And illustrating those is also where I would have the most fun. So sometimes when you think about, Sandy's on this call, so I always use her example, right? Illustrating on how the values are in her business. She has a pie event, right? So, who doesn't love pie around the holidays? So it is illustrating how that is important. So if I were going to put in a piece of content around her pies, it would be building and creating a storyboard around why we do the pies, why it's important, how it's fun, and then video clipping that and paying for this larger piece of content around the pie. It is the thing that precedes you. It is the thing that differentiates you, but it is also how are you executing on your values, your mission, and your vision. And that's where you can have a lot of fun. And so when you think about illustrating, do the fun part of it, and how you make those decisions. It's fascinating to people, and your growth is powerful to everyone else. So we want to be part of that, and demonstrating that value is something that you can also do over the whole lifespan of your business. And so the value that you're showing in one time period is going to look different than another time period. And so I would think about that recession versus non-recession, right? When things are good, when things are not good. How do we show that? Years ago, we had a recession that really impacted small business very differently. The internet wasn't what it is today. And so we were doing cash mobs. So we would send out to people to say, look, we need to support these small businesses. Come spend $20. And we would invite everyone down on a Saturday, which eventually became what you hear from, which was invented from Small Business Saturday. That came out of American Express. But these little cash mobs were our local ways to demonstrate, we really appreciate you small businesses. We're going to come down. We're going to spend at least $20 in your store. And we're going to come through that. Now, through that, we found all sorts of things that made it really crazy and crazy. So we started building differently from there. Then we started to make it a whole week. Come down, and we would, cash mob for the week, and we would give you a cookie or something fun when you got there. So even just that change in how we would do that. But it was to say, how can we talk about the things that are important to your business in a lot of different ways. So another pop quiz going on our theme today, which is actually not a quiz. It's really just an interesting fact, because I think people don't know how important a forest is. And when you're thinking about your evergreen content, I do need you to think about it like a forest. So when you think about a forest, I'm in the Midwest. This came from the DNR. So you can also, if you're watching the replay, put this into the comment section. I would love to know your favorite thing in the forest. But when we think about the forest, we don't just think about the trees and the leaves and the things, but it is that most forests here in Minnesota have 80 different kinds of mammals in them. They have almost 1,000 species of insects and arthropods, little things that you dig up in the soil. We have 123 species of fish in almost all of the lakes and streams and the rivers and the places that we have 10,000 lakes. So there's a lot of things living in them around. But we also have 29 species of reptiles that are roaming around in the forest with you. So when you're thinking about your evergreen content, much like we're thinking about a forest, you want to think about these different segments of what you're going to be talking about. If I just took this information and said, I'm just going to talk about forest for the rest of my life, I would have now had, 1,200 items to talk about in that. So think about your business as that old growth forest, especially those of you who have had a business for more than 10 years. boy, have you seen a lot of stuff. Boy, do you know what's going on. Boy, have you seen all of it change. So that's what I mean. Get that 3x5 card out and really just put in your topics, because you actually have a lot to mobilize. You have a lot of information. You already are working from a point of prosperity. And then just think about how you're going to work that through. And my only thing about those cards is I just give you one tiny piece of information on those cards. And that is, intention is not action. You have to do those to have action. For those of you who are watching this, that it's coming up in your feed because you're part of the 12-week year, that you're in our accountability group, boy, do I talk about that. Intention is not action. You have to actually take action. And for those of you who are actually watching this because you're also in our small business cohort, this is, again, it's action. It's action. And you want to create for yourself this ability where you can't rely on the news and the media to give you brand credibility. You have to be able to start the building of it yourself and then mobilize the people that you're serving to be part of that. And that's the magical part of content here, is that it is this enhanced version. It makes it so much, I don't know, yummified. It just makes it better. And when you think about prosperity in general, right, that's the good fortune of good media, is that it just gives it the ability to talk with energy and power. And that's when it's super intentional. It is it's sometimes it's just not the credibility that you're building. It's the reliability, it's the consistency that you're doing it, but it's the positioning itself. When we talk about how do you build authority, authority is the position and the consistency that help you gain the credibility, even if it's not perfect, right? That's why a weekly radio show is a big deal for people, right? That it's the process that you go through, that people are coming in there, and that you're a knowledgeable resource. When I think about great podcasts are taking us on a journey every week. That it's that point. And when you think about prosperity for yourself and your business, it also showcases this element of prosperity, that you are healthy enough to engage. And that's right, something when you think differently about a business that is healthy enough to engage in sending a newsletter out. You think about it differently because it means that they can talk with energy and power all the time. That's an indicator that something is prosperous, it's buoyant, it's alive. When I think about this from a fun aspect of what you want to give the people that are loving you, right? Sharing. When we think about shareability in general, shareability is what you're looking for. You're giving people shareability. And when we think about sharing is not rationing, right? Sharing is giving out content freely. It is an award, it's a gift, it's really this active encouragement that you're giving people, but it's also community and communal. So when we're thinking about sharing, right, because this is shareability, I think, is the secret sauce of all content, because it's something that you go, oh my gosh, my friend needs to hear this, or this is infectious, right? Whether it's a plateful or a parcel, right? Whether it's just this little bit or it's this huge lot, you want to be able to kind of give it that way, right? And we call that kind of by spade or by spoon, right? I can either spoon feed it to somebody or I can give them a whole shovel full of it. So when you think about that content, these are the easiest ones to think about, our blogs. Are you trying to get people, where are you trying to get to people, right? Where do you want them to go to? And when we go back to connecting evergreen content to what is your place of business, And many of you have a place of business that is a physical location. So we have to invite them down to the store. If your place is a virtual concept, like an online store, then we have to invite them to the store. If it is, an event, we have to invite them to the event. So, but when you are looking at where are these items held, where are you holding your content? We want that blog to be attached to your website so we can see the other things that you're doing. So if you are investing a lot in content, we just expand your website to include that content as a weekly upload so that you have something new to put into your newsletter, that you have a place for somebody to read all your past blogs, especially if you have invested a lot in newsletters, pull them back because there's a lot of newsletter writing new services that we're using in large concepts. So there are people who write for law firms, there are people who write for real estate, there are people who write for home builders, there are people who write in healthcare, there's people that write in food, that we really want those blogs at the main place. We want them in that home environment. Where do we want them to find you and your magic? It is more to run, but it is worth it, is if you are doing those videos, to be able to have them on YouTube. But in Evergreen content, we want those Evergreen content pieces on that website as a new page, so that people can kind of click through and see that. And keeping the ones that are, especially like those Q&As, we're seeing a lot more people use their Q&A as a video that you can have the written version of it or click this video. Ebooks are still popular. They are not unpopular. We are seeing ebooks now becoming more and more valuable, and we're also seeing them come up on Amazon. So we're seeing people who are writing industry-specific items that are only maybe under 25 to 50 pages, that they are now putting up on Amazon as a $1.99 or $3.99 item. So those ebooks also have a sellable factor. The other thing with great Evergreen content is you can put it together and make it a sellable format. We see people using these in classes and demonstrations, lots of different ways. So there are many things that don't have to be fabulous and perfect. And you're looking at the marketing budget that you're going to put some money into so that it looks classic. It's done well. For those of you who have invested in shorter content and specifically newsletters that are going out and you're writing for those newsletters, I would go back and look at those newsletters and pull them back towards you and say, how can I use that as a blog, as a video? How can I reuse that content so that it can be used in that multiplying factor, right? It gives you a way to take trusted content and build it out a little differently. So I think that's fun. When you are thinking that up for you, it's an investment into the future, right? So the picture I chose for this is this lovely little critter alone in this field of wild growth, right? Just peeking up. And what that is that you get the illusion that it's like in the middle of nowhere, right? That you're just have this one little face peeking out in a sea of fall wheat and long grasses. And a lot of times we feel like that. We feel like I'm just alone out here in the weeds. And what am I going to do with my content? But it's really, the more that you do it, what happens is you never have to put it into an empty field. You always get to put it in with the other things that you've built. It's a body of work. You are investing consistently for a body of work, so you don't ever have to feel like it's a one-off. And that's what I think a lot of people are thinking about when they're creating, is they're just creating one thing. What can I draw in the middle of this page? And you have to throw that thinking away for the basis of your marketing. You have to throw that away because it's not equipping you for prosperity. You want to be that valuable resource for your people. You want it to be eagerly to share. Cutability, likability, um, is always exciting. A meme is always funny. If it's something funny, that's short-term content. That's the sugar you put on top of your cereal. This is the oatmeal of your life, right? That you want the things that are stable and heart healthy and good for you. And when you think of a forest, right, it's the underbelly of that forest that makes it great. So invest in what you're good at. And the other thing about that is that it serves as a valuable tool. When someone has used some of your content as a tool once, they'll come back because they knew it worked. You will go back to something that you know works. When somebody needs a meditation, they're going to their favorite meditation place. When you need a skill, when you need to learn you need a good recipe, you know where to go get your recipe. That not everyone just goes, oh, how do I make a quiche? And just picks the first quiche. That they're going to go, how does Martha Stewart make a quiche? Right? How does so-and-so make a quiche? This is why if you are someone who's a fan of a certain chef or a certain type of food, you're going to go look for that kind of food. So think about that in general. So one, I want to thank you for coming to class. That this is always an honor to get to hang out with you. It's always the best time of my day. And so I'm just going to quick remind you, if you are new to prosperity business model, it is the three things. It's the three E's, right? It's economy, right? It is how, and this is why I like this, right? This is why I like to talk about this subject, is because the three E's of a prosperity business model, right? It's the economy. How are things doing it? How are you doing trade? Trade is economy. If you want to build prosperity for an individual, a business, a country, it's all the same. It's all the same. We have to give you the ability to trade. And you are trading on content these days. Knowledge working is the name of the game. And people finding you for your knowledge is the name of the game. The price you're going to pay is based on the knowledge people think you have and your efficiency. How do you do it, right? We have to be able to work on the efficiency of how fast someone who doesn't know you can get to a sale, because that's the trade, right? We have to be able to build efficiency through trust, through trade, through all of those things. When we look at content that is thought out and is evergreen, it's efficient. It's efficient for your output and your input. So look at things that are there to get you as quickly as you can from, I don't know you, how do I build trust, and how can I get a paycheck to you quickly? And then environment. This is where your language, this is where your thoughts and voice, this is where your position is coming in. Not just the physical environment of, right, the forest or clean water or something like that. I'm really looking at the environment of the business, right? What's the environment that you are creating? What's the environment for your customer? What's the environment for you, right? One of the things that when I first come to a business is I go, let me walk around your offices and let me see the environment that people are working in. Let me watch how people come in. Let me see how they're greeted. Let me look at what is the energy of that space, because the environment that you're creating in is really important. We have a guy named Bob that lives on the way, and he is just a crusty old plumber that I just get such a tickle out of. And he drives a beat up old van and he works only the night shifts. So he's the guy you're going to call in the middle of the night. He's a chain smoker, but I know it's his van whenever I'm anywhere in the city, because he has a million pieces of paper. The environment that he's driving in is just this pile of paper. And he's constantly, he's writing a receipt and he's throwing that copy in, right? Like I think his tax planning starts on his dashboard. And it's just funny, right? It's just hilarious, but that's his style. That's the environment that he's always working on, is just a van of stuff that's moving around to fix somebody's clog. So when you think about your own work environment, the own environment that you're creating from, look around. How are your customers coming to you? And then think about your content as part of that environment. Think about where you're talking about stuff. What are they seeing? What's the environment that you are talking about? Okay, I'm going to pull us off stop share. Sandy's here live. We're going to say hi to her. But thank you again for coming to class with us. I always love it. I always love it. And Sandy, hello from us to you. Are you with us, or are you just going to watch the replay? There you are. She lost her voice. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, then we will do that. If you want to, what's your takeaway today? Oh, my favorite part is the smells. Yeah, I love it. Thumbs up on everything you're talking about. It's super relevant for me. Yeah. And you do a lot of content. So, yeah, I think this is a big deal. I think this is a big deal. And I can see you typing again. I love this topic. This is perfect for me. I have to do content today. Right. Well, and you really have put a lot into your content lately, very differently. So I think that's wonderful as well. Okay. Karen, any words of advice for us before so Sandy, before you came, we had a wonderful conversation. So you'll love this replay already. Yeah, you'll love this replay. We get to talk about writing and stuff. So you'll love the beginning. You'll love the beginning. And we have Janet and some other people that are watching the replay too. So that's the fun of these is
Yeah.
If you can make it live, we do, but we'll see you later too. Karen, what's your takeaway today? Yeah, the pen.
Pen to paper.
Pen to paper.
And,
that's where it starts.
Remember that if you're interested in it, somebody else will be too. And you know, something that you have enthusiasm for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's right on. Yes, I need to put my content in the blog on my website. Yes, that for you. I mean, you are sitting on a pile of riches because your newsletter is great. So going back to your newsletter, putting it on the blog, letting people categorize it. And you want to categorize that blog. So the thing I would put together is kind of your categories of your top 5 list of, right? And you happen to be a realtor. So for anybody else who's watching this as a realtor, right? It's the preparing or home buying process or getting your house ready. You've got a lot to choose from. And the other thing that would be fun when I think about your when I think about how many newsletter articles you have, they're already categorized. That you actually talk on the same similar categories a lot. So they're already there. But you have a treasure trove because you have a good newsletter. And that goes out every week. So that makes it really searchable. The only way somebody can use that content is so that it's searchable. So you'll have to categorize it into probably the top 5 categories. And you have 3 years of that for sure. So you have 150.
Yeah.
That's a treasure trove. If I had assigned you to write 150 articles today, you would probably cry.
Sandy,
yeah.
I love your videos.
Yes, and your new videos.
Yes, they're wonderful. They're very likable.
Cute.
You know.
Yeah. And I can see her writing now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been fun and a long time coming. Yeah, it has. And now you're fearless. So you're just gonna have right. And I love that little cute personality is coming through. So I mean, that's what we love about you. So
yeah.
It's easy. Well, my takeaway today is again, look at this as a prosperity concept, right? Is the ability to magnify. And the consistency is part of what makes that content relevant. So the fact that you're doing it every week, and that's the first place that we start is whatever is the consistency in evergreen content. So when you're looking at content that you want to hang around, we start with monthly. Then we move to twice a month. then we move to weekly. But you just start to build that content. We were doing something else, but you really need 1,000 pieces of content that people can access to be able to have a body of work that someone can count as consistent. And that 1,000 pieces of content is just that you are able to be seen in these other ways. So that means that it's not just 1,000 pieces of 1,000 videos. It's 1,000 pieces in these variable places that get a lot of hits. And the only way you can do that is over a 5-year period. So I would think about this as a 3 to 5 year goal about what is it that you want as the treasure trove. Okay, well, our time has come. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's always good to see you. It's always good to be here. If I get you live, I love it. But bye, everybody, because everybody's watching us on replay. So Sandy will have her voice back next time.